More. Have you ever wondered why the most powerful men and women you've admired didn't rise through ease, but through pain? More, why is it that before God uses someone greatly, He first allows them to be broken deeply? The truth is, more, every person destined for purpose must walk through a season where their strength, their pride, and even their plans are shattered. More. It is in those very moments of breaking that God is not destroying you, but shaping you. He is stripping away what cannot carry the weight of your calling, more, so that what remains is unshakable, unmovable, and usable for something far greater than yourself. Brokenness is the pathway to purpose, more, and though the words may sound heavy, they carry within them the secret to transformation. When a person feels shattered, when dreams fall apart, more, and when life seems to press them into corners where no strength is left, something divine is at work. God never breaks a man to destroy him. More, He breaks him to rebuild him for something higher. Think for a moment about how a seed must be broken in the soil before it can grow into a tree. More, how clay must be pressed, molded, and reshaped before it becomes a vessel of beauty and usefulness. In the same way, more, the broken places in your life are not the end of you, but the beginning of who you are truly meant to become. More, when everything feels like it is falling apart, it may actually be falling into place. The breaking strips away illusions of control. More, it humbles the heart and quiets the noise of pride that says, more, I can do it all by myself. It is in that quiet place of surrender where the soul finally becomes open enough to be guided. More. Brokenness bends the stiff spirit and makes it pliable in the hands of the Creator. Without it, the man or woman remains hardened, unteachable, more, and dependent on their own wisdom. But through the breaking, the heart becomes sensitive, the mind more open, and the spirit more ready to receive. That is why brokenness is not punishment, it is preparation. Many people fear brokenness because it feels like weakness, but in reality, more, it is strength in disguise. When God allows you to be broken, He is building endurance within you that comfort could never provide. More, He is teaching you that your identity does not lie in possessions, achievements, or applause, but in something deeper, eternal, and unshakable. More, through trials, you discover that your worth is not tied to what you can hold together, but to what He holds together in you. More, a man who has never been broken often trusts in himself, but a man who has been broken learns to trust in God. More, and that shift becomes the foundation for true greatness. Think about it. What kind of vessel can pour into others? More, not the one that is flawless and untouched, but the one that has been cracked, tested, and proven. Brokenness allows compassion to flow. More, because only those who have tasted suffering can comfort others in theirs. It creates humility. More, because the man who has been crushed knows he is no better than those who stumble. It builds resilience, because when you have survived the breaking, more, you carry a strength that cannot be shaken by storms. Brokenness births purpose. More, because only through it do you begin to see that your life is not just about you, but about the impact you are meant to make. More, some of the greatest breakthroughs are hidden behind seasons of breaking. The job loss that seems unbearable, the betrayal that cuts deep. More, the sickness that weakens the body, or the failure that wounds the pride. All of these moments may feel like endings, but in God's plan, more, they are new beginnings. Each time something breaks in your life, a door is opened for growth that comfort could never have given you. More, the man who refuses to break remains shallow, but the man who allows God to use his brokenness becomes a well of wisdom and strength for generations. So, more, if you find yourself in a place where the weight of life feels too much, do not despise the breaking. More, see it instead as the evidence that you are being prepared for something greater. Every crack in your life is a reminder that light can enter through you. More, every tear in your story is a place where someone else will find hope, and every loss is a seed planted that, in time, will grow into a harvest of purpose. More, brokenness is not the end. It is the pathway to the destiny you were created for. Embrace it, endure it. more, and trust that the very hands that break you are the same hands that will lift you up and use you mightily. God removes self-reliance to build dependence. More, and though the process may sting, it is the very work that transforms a man into a vessel of strength and humility. From the moment we are born, we are conditioned to believe that independence is the ultimate goal, that success means never needing anyone, never asking for help, and always standing tall on our own 2 feet. But in the spiritual journey, self-reliance becomes a barrier rather than a badge. It blinds the heart, it hardens the spirit, and it convinces us that our limited wisdom and fragile strength are enough to navigate the storms of life. And so, when God truly wants to use a man, he begins by dismantling that illusion. He allows circumstances that strip away our false securities until we are brought to the place where dependence on him is not just an option, but the only way forward. This breaking of self-reliance can feel like being thrown into deep waters without a lifeline. Plans that once seemed so certain suddenly crumble. Resources you counted on vanish. People you leaned upon disappear or disappoint you. The road that looked clear yesterday suddenly closes, and you find yourself standing with nothing but empty hands and a weary heart. It is in those moments that you realize the truth. Self cannot sustain itself. No matter how gifted, skilled, or disciplined you may be, life has a way of showing you that your strength has limits. And when those limits are reached, dependence becomes not a weakness, but the only pathway to survival. God allows this so that we stop building our lives on sand and start anchoring them on the rock of his wisdom and guidance. The man who trusts only in himself builds fragile castles that fall at the first storm. But the man who learns dependence builds on a foundation that no wave can move. Dependence does not mean passivity. It does not mean doing nothing and waiting for everything to fall from the sky. It means surrendering the illusion of control and walking each step with the awareness that your strength comes from beyond yourself. It means acknowledging that without his breath you cannot breathe, without his guidance you will lose your way, without his grace, your efforts will remain empty. When God removes self-reliance, he is not trying to leave you helpless. He is positioning you for a strength greater than you could ever muster on your own. He is training you to hear his voice in the quiet, to lean on him when the ground beneath you shakes, and to trust that even when you cannot see the way, he has already gone before you. Dependence teaches patience because you learn that timing is not in your hands. It teaches humility, because you understand you are not the source of your success. It teaches courage, because when you realize that God is with you, you can walk through storms without fear. The proud heart resists dependence, but the broken heart embraces it. And once that shift happens, everything changes. You stop striving to prove yourself and instead start living with purpose. You stop exhausting yourself trying to carry loads you were never meant to carry, and instead find strength in releasing them into his hands. You stop fearing loss because you realize that even when everything else is gone, the one who remains is more than enough. The paradox of dependence is that it does not make you weaker, it makes you stronger. It frees you from the prison of self and unlocks the infinite power of divine partnership. So if you feel as though your efforts are constantly being frustrated, if every time you try to rely on your own strength you meet resistance, perhaps it is not failure at all. Perhaps it is the hand of God gently pulling you away from the fragile crutches of self-reliance and inviting you into the steady embrace of dependence. For the man who depends on himself can only go as far as his limited abilities allow, but the man who depends on God steps into a limitless horizon. That is why God breaks self-reliance, so he can build a deeper, unshakable reliance on him. And it is in that place of surrender that true power, true purpose, and true peace are found. The wilderness shapes the warrior, and though no one desires to walk through barren lands of silence, loneliness, or struggle, It is often in those hidden seasons where the strongest foundations are laid. The wilderness is not simply a physical place. More, it is a spiritual season, a time when life feels dry, prayers seem unanswered, and the comforts you once leaned on are stripped away. More, it feels like isolation, as if you have been forgotten, but in truth, it is the training ground of God. More, the wilderness is where the noise of the world fades, and where the soul learns to survive not on applause, not on abundance, but on faith. More, when a man is destined to be used for something greater, he cannot be shaped in the spotlight. He must be forged in silence. More, the wilderness teaches lessons that prosperity cannot. It strips away the distractions that blur vision, and it sharpens the senses to hear with clarity. More, in the wilderness, a man discovers who he really is without the mask of titles, possessions, or recognition. More, he learns that character is not defined when life is easy, but when no one is watching, when no one is applauding, and when no one is there to cheer him on. More, it is in this place of seeming abandonment that inner strength is born. The wilderness humbles pride, but it also awakens courage. More, stripped of external validation, the man must learn to draw from a deeper well. Hunger and thirst in the wilderness teach him to value what truly sustains. More, to separate the superficial from the eternal. Loneliness in the wilderness teaches him to lean on the unseen presence that never leaves. More, the endless waiting in the wilderness teaches him patience, endurance, and trust in a timing that is higher than his own. More, what feels like delay is actually preparation, for no warrior can be trusted on the battlefield who has not first been proven in the solitude of training. More, every warrior has scars from the wilderness, but those scars become marks of authenticity. More, they are reminders that strength is not found in ease but in endurance. More, the man who has never been tested in obscurity will crumble under the weight of responsibility and visibility. More, but the man who has been refined in the wilderness carries with him a strength that fame cannot corrupt, trials cannot destroy, and adversity cannot defeat. More, he emerges with resilience, with wisdom, and with a heart that beats not for his own glory, but for a purpose greater than himself. More, the wilderness also reshapes perspective. What once seemed important loses its grip. The applause of men no longer defines value, because in the wilderness, more, the only approval that matters is divine approval. Ambitions are purified, motives are exposed, and desires are refined. More, when a man walks through the wilderness and learns to trust God alone, he becomes free from the chains of people pleasing. More, free from the prison of fear and free from the weight of pride. That freedom makes him dangerous, not because he seeks power for himself. More, but because he has become untouchable by the things that once held him captive. So, if you find yourself in a season that feels dry and empty, more, do not despise it. The wilderness is not abandonment, it is assignment. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. You are not forgotten. More, you are being formed. Every lonely night, every unanswered prayer, every quiet battle is chiseling away the parts of you that cannot carry your calling. More, and building within you the parts that will sustain it. The wilderness does not last forever, but its lessons last for eternity. When you emerge, more, you will not be the same man who entered. You will come out stronger, wiser, humbler, and ready, not because of what you endured, more, but because of what was forged within you. The wilderness shapes the warrior, and when the time comes, that warrior will be unstoppable. More, suffering reveals strength, though at first glance it may feel like the very opposite. When pain strikes, when loss cuts deep, more, when disappointment steals the joy from your heart, the natural response is to see suffering as weakness. But in the divine design, more, suffering is not meant to crush you, it is meant to uncover what has been hidden inside you all along. Like fire that draws out the impurities in gold, more, suffering refines, clarifies, and purifies the soul until the strength buried beneath fear and fragility comes forth. More, a man who has never suffered may appear strong, but his strength is untested, fragile, and shallow. The man who has endured suffering, however, more, carries a depth of resilience that cannot be shaken. It is in the moments of breaking that you discover you are not as fragile as you thought. More. When you face hardship and survive what you once thought would destroy you, something shifts inside. More confidence grows. Not the confidence built on ego or pride, but the quiet assurance that if you overcame once, you can overcome again. More. Pain reveals that your spirit is stronger than your circumstances. It teaches you that wounds are not the end, more, but often the beginning of a new layer of wisdom, compassion, and resilience. It shows you that storms may shake your world, more, but they cannot uproot the foundation of faith that suffering builds within you. Suffering also teaches the kind of lessons that ease will never provide. More ease makes us comfortable. Suffering makes us courageous. Ease lulls us into routine. Suffering wakes us up to purpose. Ease can make us selfish. More suffering breaks us open to compassion. More, the man who has walked through pain can sit with another in their darkest hour and offer not shallow words but genuine empathy. He understands. More, because he has been there, his scars become a testimony, and his presence becomes a source of strength to others. In this way, more suffering does not just reveal your strength for yourself, it multiplies that strength to bless those around you. Often, more suffering strips away the illusions that we are in control. It reminds us of our limits, but in doing so, it also reminds us of where true power lies. More. It takes us to the edge of ourselves, forcing us to lean on something greater. And in that leaning, in that desperate dependence, more strength that does not come from within but from above begins to flow. That strength carries you when your legs cannot. More, it lifts you when your spirit is heavy. It whispers hope when everything around you says there is none. Through suffering, more, you learn that you are never truly alone, and that realization becomes a source of courage that no trial can erase. More, the paradox is that suffering both breaks and builds. It breaks pride, ego, and self-reliance, but it builds character, patience, and endurance. More, it breaks illusions, but it builds vision. It breaks the shallow, but it builds the eternal. And in the midst of it all, more, it reveals that you are far stronger, far braver, and far more capable than you imagine. More, it shows that strength is not the absence of pain, but the ability to rise despite it. More, true strength is not the ability to avoid suffering, but the resilience to transform it into growth, wisdom, and deeper faith. More. So when you find yourself in the valley of suffering, remember this. More, what feels like your breaking point may actually be the unveiling of your true strength. Do not despise the pain, more, for it is chiseling away the layers that hide your resilience. Do not curse the trial, more, for it is birthing a strength that will sustain you and inspire others. You are not defined by what you suffer, but by how you rise through it. More, and every time you rise, every time you endure, every time you press on when you feel like giving up, more, you are proving that suffering does not destroy strength, it reveals it. Humility unlocks divine authority, more, and though the world often sees humility as weakness, in the realm of spiritual truth, it is the very key that opens doors no strength of man can open. More, pride resists, but humility surrenders. Pride demands recognition, but humility bows low. More, knowing that true greatness is not in exalting oneself, but in being lifted by the one who sees the heart. When God wants to use a man, he first humbles him. More, because authority without humility becomes dangerous. A man who is elevated without first being broken will use power for himself. More, but a man who has been humbled will use it to serve, to heal, and to bless. Humility is not about thinking less of yourself. More, it is about thinking rightly of yourself, seeing your gifts as given, your position as entrusted, and your strength as borrowed. More, humility is born in the seasons where life strips you of titles, applause, and the illusion of control. More, it is in those moments that you realize you are not invincible, and you cannot do it all on your own. The proud heart despises those seasons. More, but the humble heart embraces them as refining fires. It is through humility that a man learns to walk with wisdom. More, because he no longer believes he knows it all. It is through humility that he learns compassion. More, because he recognizes his own frailty and extends grace to others in theirs. And it is through humility that he learns dependence, more because he acknowledges that every breath is a gift and every opportunity a responsibility. When humility takes root, more authority follows, not the kind of authority that intimidates or dominates, but the kind that inspires, guides, and uplifts. More divine authority is different from earthly power. Earthly power demands submission, but divine authority commands respect because it flows from authenticity. The man who carries humility speaks with a weight that comes not from his voice, but from his character. His words pierce because they are born from experience. His presence shifts atmospheres because he carries peace, and his leadership transforms because it is rooted in service. People are drawn not to his pride, but to his humility, for in humility they see a reflection of something higher than man. Humility also protects authority. Without it, success corrupts, recognition inflates, and influence destroys. But humility keeps the heart grounded, no matter how high a man rises. It reminds him that he is not the source of his greatness, only the steward of it, teachable, because no matter how much he knows, he recognizes that there is always more to learn. It keeps him approachable, because he does not see himself as above others but alongside them. And it keeps him usable, because God will not entrust lasting influence to a vessel filled with pride. Only the broken and humble can carry the weight of authority without crumbling under it. The paradox is that humility, which looks like lowering yourself, actually lifts you higher than pride ever could. Pride may elevate a man for a moment, but humility establishes him for a lifetime. Pride may build empires that crumble, but humility builds legacies that endure. Pride may bring followers, but humility raises leaders. And when divine authority flows through humility, it is unstoppable. Because it is not built on the shifting sands of ego, but on the eternal foundation of truth. So if you find yourself in a season of humbling, where your strength is questioned, your pride is challenged, and your ego is stripped away, do not resist it. See it as preparation, for the man who can bow low can also be trusted to stand tall. The man who kneels in humility can be trusted to carry authority that transforms. Humility is not the loss of identity, it is the unlocking of destiny. When you embrace it, you open the door to divine authority, and through that authority, you will not only rise but also lift others with you. Your breaking becomes someone else's blessing, and though the pain you endure often feels unbearable, it is never wasted. Every trial, every setback, every tear carries within it the potential to bring light into the darkness of another person's life. When God allows you to be broken, it is not simply for your refinement, but also for the healing of others. The cracks in your soul become the very places where compassion flows, and the struggles you overcome become the testimony that lifts others out of despair. What once felt like your greatest defeat often transforms into your most powerful ministry, because pain shared is pain redeemed, and wounds healed become wisdom offered. A man who has never faced hardship may speak words, but they lack depth, they lack weight. Yet a man who has been broken speaks with authority, because he has lived what he speaks. His scars are not marks of shame, but proof that survival is possible. When you show your wounds, you give others permission to face theirs. When you share your journey through valleys, you give hope to those still walking through shadows. In this way, your breaking does not just shape you, it becomes a lifeline for someone else who wonders if they can make it through. Think about how often the greatest comfort comes from those who have endured the very same pain. The widow who comforts another in loss, the addict who guides another to freedom, the once broken man who teaches resilience. Each carries a strength born not from theory, but from experience. Their lives prove that light can shine even in the darkest places. And that is the beauty of brokenness. What once seemed like a curse becomes the very gift that others desperately need. What once left you wounded becomes the very thing that heals someone else. More, this is why no suffering is meaningless. When you endure betrayal, you learn loyalty, and you can teach others the value of trust. When you endure loss, more, you learn gratitude, and you can show others the beauty of cherishing what remains. When you endure failure, you learn perseverance, more, and you can inspire others not to give up. Every season of breaking leaves behind wisdom, empathy, more, and resilience that are not for you alone, but for all who will cross your path. You become a vessel through which strength flows, more, not in spite of your brokenness, but because of it. The cracks in your life also allow humility to shine. People are not inspired by perfection, more, they are inspired by perseverance. They are not moved by flawless success, they are moved by stories of stumbling and rising again, more. When you show that your breaking did not destroy you, but instead reshaped you, you become living proof that pain does not have the final word. More, you become evidence that purpose can rise from ashes, that joy can be reborn after sorrow, and that strength can emerge from weakness. More, this authenticity creates connection, because people are drawn not to masks but to truth, not to pretenses but to realness. More. So never despise the seasons where you feel broken. They are not only preparing you but also equipping you to bless others. More, the lessons you learn in solitude will become the words that guide others in their storms. More, the tears you cry in silence will become the compassion that heals another's heart. More, the scars you carry will become the map that leads someone else through their wilderness. Your story is not just about you. More, it is about the countless lives that will be touched through you. Your breaking is not wasted pain, but multiplied purpose. More, it creates rivers of empathy that flow into dry lands. It gives courage to those ready to quit, and it inspires faith in those who feel forgotten. More, the blessing of your breaking is that it turns personal pain into shared hope. And when you allow God to use your story, more, you become more than a survivor, you become a beacon. Your breaking becomes someone else's blessing, and through it, countless lives will rise. More, every season of breaking, every valley of struggle, every wilderness of silence has not been wasted. It has been preparation. More, from the beginning to the end, the story of your life is being written with purpose, and the pen in God's hand never slips. More, brokenness was never meant to destroy you, but to shape you into a vessel of strength, humility, and compassion. More, each crack became an opening for light to shine. Each wound became wisdom. Each tear became the seed of a blessing for someone else. More, you have walked through the pathway of brokenness to discover that purpose is birthed not in comfort, but in challenge. More, you have learned that self-reliance can carry you only so far, but dependence on God makes you unstoppable. You have seen how the wilderness, though lonely, more, is the very ground that turns ordinary men into warriors. You have realized that suffering, though painful, more, is the chisel that reveals the strength hidden deep within you. You have discovered that humility is not weakness, more, but the very key that unlocks divine authority. And most of all, more, you now know that your breaking is not just about you. It is about the countless lives that will be blessed through your story. So, more, as you rise from this place, carry with you this truth. The breaking was never the end. It was the beginning. You were not crushed to remain in pieces, more, but to be rebuilt stronger, wiser, and ready for greater purpose. Your scars are not signs of defeat, but marks of survival, proof that you endured, more. And reminders that you were chosen for something bigger. The very things that tried to break you will become the very things that define you as unstoppable. More, walk forward now with courage, not resenting the breaking, but embracing it as the evidence that you are called, chosen, and prepared. More, for when God breaks a man, it is only because he intends to use him. And when he uses him, the world is never the same.